take us back, when you first identified Dirk, probably the age of 16 or so, 17, in Germany, probably weighed about a buck 60, probably looked like Porzingis does now. What made him special in your eyes? Why did he jump out to you?
Well, actually, we hosted the European team for the 1998 Nike Hoop Summit, and that was played in San Antonio. But Donnie Nelson, who I had hired right after I hired his father, arranged for the European team to come to Dallas and practice. And it was really a very creative thing to do because it gave us an opportunity to look at a lot of these young European players. Don Nelson had made I think a real effort into really understanding European basketball, really probably before most people in the NBA. Sharunas Marcelunas and all the stuff that Nelly did in his career. And so when Dirk came to the practice facility, Big Nelly and Little Nelly were there. I was not there. And they watched the first practice. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting in my home, and I get a call, and it's Big Nelly, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm here at the house." He said, "Get in your car, drive as fast as you can, and get down here." And from that moment, the Mavericks, under both Nellies, we made a decision that Dirk Nowitzki was going to be, a special player. And we did everything we could to try to keep him out of the game down in San Antonio because we didn't want anyone to know that this guy was that good. And the interesting thing about it is that night or the night after, I met Holger, his coach and mentor, for the first time. And I would say the under-over on Heineken's that Holger drank that night was 15, and I would probably go over.
Wow, man.
And
Wow.
we did our best to try to convince Holger that Dirk had a knee injury and he really shouldn't go down there and everything else. We couldn't get him out of the game. He goes down and scores 42 points.
Of course.
And so it was really interesting. But from that moment, we had made a decision, and we did everything we could, literally, to hide this guy.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Everything.
Gotcha.
Frank, what was the fan reaction? Because it was BT and I were talking about this a little bit earlier in the show. The Dallas was going through some hard times at that point. What was the fan reaction to this guy that they definitely never saw? Because coverage is not like it is now. Like, we knew what Porzingis was when he was drafted by the Knicks because you could see it. There's social media and all these other things. What were the fans saying?
Well, this would really surprise a lot of people outside of Dallas, but Dirk and Steve Nash, which we'll get into in a minute, because they really came as a tandem in 1998. They were both booed, pretty regularly the first year and a half. And, I would say that the consensus in the league and the consensus with the sports writers was that we reached. Who is this guy? When him and Steve, there's a picture of Steve, Nelly, and Dirk. I mean, Dirk looks about 15. Steve looks 14. They got these goofy haircuts. And to be honest, it was a tough year and a half. But you could see that Nowitzki was going to be something special. He was a skilled player. And, he's 7 foot tall. He could put the ball on the floor. He could shoot the hell out of it. And you could see that there were skills. It was just the adaptation of understanding the speed of the NBA game, the physicality of the NBA game. And it took him a while to adjust. But he was booed pretty regularly along with Steve the first year.
I want to throw this by you. We're talking to Frank Zaccanelli, who obviously helped draft and scout and really identify Dirk Nowitzki, GM, former co-owner as well. The draft dynamic, take us to this night. So you guys actually take Robert Traylor, who for the most part was a complete non-entity in the NBA. He just wasn't very good at all. These trades are tricky. Did you draft him entirely with the knowledge that he was gone, or were you prepared to stick with him? How did the whole thing come about?
No, Big Nelly engineered a deal with Milwaukee where we were able to move from 6 to 9. We felt like Nowitzki, no question, was still going to be on the board at 9. The only team
Boston
that we thought, that's right,
yeah.
And they were at 10. And so we felt that if we could stay in front of them, now the risk in the whole deal was they would trade up to 7 or 8 and jump in front of us. So the longest, I would tell you, the longest 35, 40 minutes in Don Nelson's NBA career was the time frame from the time that we drafted Robert Traylor for the Milwaukee Bucks to the time that they were going to draft Dirk Nowitzki for us, because that was all tied into the Steve Nash trade with Phoenix because they wanted Pat Garrity. And so we were able to pick up either the 16th or the 18th pick, which we drafted Garrity for Phoenix and then traded our 1999 number 1 first-round pick to Phoenix with Garrity for the rights to Steve Nash. And the interesting thing about it is, do you guys know who that 99 pick was for Phoenix? Sean Marion.
No. Sean? Okay, yeah, UNLV, yeah.
So that was really the interesting circle. But in the draft room that night,
wow,
the anxiety was brutal when the 7th and 8th pick were chosen to make sure that, that we were going to be solid in Milwaukee's ability. I mean, Nelly, who liked to smoke cigars, I never saw a guy inhale cigars the way he inhaled them, during that period. It was pretty amazing. But, thank God the night worked out and really turned the franchise in a new direction after that draft.
BT mentioned you guys exited, obviously, as owners, and then the beef with Cuban. What's behind that?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily a beef. I mean, I tell people all the time that, when a guy pays you X amount for a franchise, it's his franchise. And whatever you've done is just in the annals of history, and it moves on. The team is really owned by the fans, but obviously, you have to have an owner, and Cuban paid us a reasonable price to own the team. There are some that have said that his whole identity was wrapped up in our ability to sell him the team. I did not want to sell because in 2000 I knew we were getting good. You got to remember, I was the captain of the Titanic for 3 years, and I could see now with Michael Finley and Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash, we were going to be a really good team. And before we bought the team, as you guys know, the Mavericks were really on a downslide. And so it was some really, really lean years. And, I'm a basketball guy. I love the game. And I just thought that, we had turned the corner. And I didn't want to sell the team. But Ross Jr., who was a great partner of mine and a great owner, Ross Perot Jr., basically just made a decision that he thought the time was right, and we sold the team to Cuban. And there have been some that said Cuban would just be another billionaire hanging out there that no one knew if it wasn't for our sale to him of the Mavericks.